D.C. So excited to have joining me tonight Congresswoman Debbie Lesko. She represents Arizona's 8th Congressional District at Rep. D. Lesko on Twitter. Congresswoman, thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a great honor.
I'm glad you're here because we have to talk about the southern border. We have been covering this on the show almost incessantly, but I feel like it's never too many times that we can bring up the fact that in addition to all of the law breaking and lawlessness that's going on at the behest of the Biden administration, we also have an unbelievable amount of human toll that's being taken in the form of sex trafficking, human trafficking, the cartels becoming enriched, and Americans really having our standard of living, our way of life obliterated by the idea that there really isn't a rule of law for people who come here illegally.
You know, you are so right. It is so discouraging. You know, since Biden has gotten in office, there have been 7 million illegal border crossings that we know of. And that doesn't include the gotaways, the ones that we saw on camera or censored but didn't catch, or the ones that we didn't even know about. 7 million. And to give you some idea, in July of 2020, when Trump was still the president, there were 41,000 border crossings in the month of July of 2020. In the month of July of 2023, under Biden, 183,500 border crossings. And so everything that I have seen from President Biden, from Secretary of Homeland Security Mayorkas, is that they want open borders. From day one, he stopped building the fence. He enacted all kinds of policies to help more illegal immigrants come into our country. And the sad thing is my Democratic colleagues say that they, are just compassionate and that's why they're doing this. And maybe some of them believe this, but it's not compassionate. It's not compassionate to have all of these people travel thousands of miles, have to pay the cartel, who would kill them in a second, thousands of dollars a person. And then when I've talked to the Border Patrol officers, they tell me these kids, these unaccompanied kids, are not only being raped, but they're being sold into sex slavery. I mean, this is just unconscionable. If what our government is doing not only to American citizens, but what they're doing to these illegal immigrants themselves.
And the brutality of it is completely ignored. I feel like the media, especially I'm talking about, Congresswoman, the 6 o'clock news, the 10 o'clock news, the 6 a.m. news. When I was a kid, I remember there being outrage if something was going on, having to do with children, having to do with if there was a murder, if there was a murder-suicide, any kind of news like that. It would be blared across the news of the local channels. And I remember my parents would talk about it, and I would sometimes overhear people talking about it at the grocery store. It was always a shock, and it was always something I would hear them say, well, Sheriff so-and-so or Congresswoman so-and-so or, this person or that person. I would hear the adults talking about the person they thought would be responsible for bringing this to conclusion, investigating it, bringing some legislation, something to make sure it never happened again. We have radio silence. It's like a library at midnight where there are no people there when it comes to the amount of coverage that's being provided on the human toll at the southern border. And it's not just the human trafficking. There's all the deaths, the highest number of deaths on American soil of illegals crossing into our country and then dying of heat exhaustion or other means on American soil ever before recorded. These numbers are staggering.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think people are becoming desensitized. There's so much bad news. I feel it when I go out and talk to people. They're like desperate. They're desperate. They're like, can you do something? Will you do something? This is insanity, and it's coming from every single angle, whether that is the border crossings, whether it's these kids, these unaccompanied illegal immigrants being sent to sponsors that aren't even vetted, that are abusing these kids, or whether it's about the price of groceries, the price of gasoline, which is now $4.49 a gallon here in Phoenix, Arizona. whether it is all the fentanyl deaths, because we've had over 22 tons of fentanyl seized at the southern border since Biden's been in office. I mean, it's just bad news after bad news after bad news. And people are they're just so upset. And you add in the whole cultural wars where Biden and the Democrats want boys to be in girls' bathrooms and locker rooms and have sex change operations on little kids that are permanent. I mean, people, including me, think the world has gone upside down in a short period of time since Biden has gotten in office, and especially when Biden was the president and you had a Democrat-controlled Senate and House. And thank God we have a Republican-controlled House now to stop some of the future insanity that would have happened if we would have continued with the Democrat-controlled House.
Oh, and so the points you're making are so, like, it's the right now, the absolute right now, everything that's going on, and it's exactly what we need to be informed about. Before our time is up tonight, and we're so grateful to have Congresswoman Debbie Lesko with us from Arizona's 8th District. Can you talk to us a little bit about your thoughts as we watch? I was joking with my daughter because we're so frustrated, and we've been praying, and that President Trump is going to get indicted for removing the mattress tag when he first got married, and then maybe also for, eating ice cream 2 scoops whenever he's home at Mar-a-Lago, another indictment. We're just every other day an indictment, and they're all just so nasty and false.
Well, it's really sad. I was at a meeting the other day, and one of the speakers said, they went after me, and I was talking about all the different indictments and that type of thing. And the speaker that came after me said, I don't even read them anymore. There's so many. They keep coming. It's so ridiculous. And that's, I've read the indictments. And this last one by the Georgia County DA, who's a liberal DA trying to make a name for herself. I mean, my goodness, she has all of these acts that she claims are conspiratorial acts that are violating the Georgia RICO laws. I mean, let me just read one of them. Act 22. Trump caused to be tweeted from the Twitter account at Real Donald Trump. Georgia hearings now on at OANN, which is One American News Network. Amazing. That's what he tweeted. And then the DA puts in the indictment, this was an overt act in furtherance of the conspiracy. I mean, and it goes on and on like that, like phone calls asking for telephone numbers, tweets. I mean, this is insanity. And, it is hard not to believe that this is all to influence the 2024 election. And then when Jack Smith, the special counsel, comes back and says, well, I want these trials to start in early 2024, before the election. And Trump says, no, I want them to start after the election. And when that DA from Georgia, the county DA, says, oh, I want the court hearings to start the day before Super Tuesday, primary day in March of next year, it's political. This is political. And it's such a disgrace, especially when all this stuff is going on with Hunter Biden and all of the millions of dollars he's gotten from foreign businesses. And we think his dad was involved in getting a cut of the money. I mean, this is just outrageous.
It is. It's outrageous, and it's un-American, and it's definitely not what we as people who, honestly, if someone's guilty of something, if there's probable cause for someone to bring charges, I've never before felt a need to say, oh, I wonder if it's political. I've always thought to myself, there are a lot of people who aren't getting prosecuted, and it is definitely political, like Hillary Clinton and her husband. There were many things that he got away with that never came to the light of day in a courthouse. And so we have, it's a new era. And I saw Newt Gingrich on television talking about this, saying that, there will be lasting ramifications if these things are allowed to stand, which is why we need Republican attorneys general to step up to the plate and start to dismantle these cases. And we need the governor of Georgia to remove that prosecutor from office, the one who's bringing this bogus case against former President Trump. In the interest of justice, we need these people to step up and do their jobs.
Well, yes, and thank God again that we have a Republican-controlled House, because can you imagine if Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats were still in power in the House and Chuck Schumer in the Senate and the president? None of these investigations on Hunter Biden and Joe Biden would have happened. None of the investigations on the origins of COVID would have happened. None of the investigations on how there was tons of fraud on the COVID money that went out. None of this would have happened. And can you imagine, they would, I don't know, maybe they would have tried to impeach Trump again after he's been impeached. I don't know. They have gone radical, absolutely radical. And, thank goodness we at least have one chamber. And we have been Republicans have been putting through good legislation to secure the border, to stop some of this craziness with sex change operations for minors. But it gets stuck in the Senate, and that's why elections have consequences, and that's why and I hope your listeners know, that we have to be engaged, and that means walking door to door, talking to our neighbors in this last election, because our country cannot afford to have 4 more years of Joe Biden.
Not even another year. We have to get our Senate back. We have to get the executive back. And the way to do that is exactly as you described. As always, we love it when you have time for us. Congresswoman Debbie Lesko from Arizona's 8th, the fantastic state of Arizona. Thank you for your time tonight at Rep D Lesko on Twitter. Have a wonderful evening, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
All right. And we will be back with more Stacy on the Right. In fact, we have Horace Cooper up next. Stay right there for more.